I'm Ray Snell. I'm a realtor with Exit Realty First, and I'm your host today. Joining me today is on the American Conservatives Value Network is Bishop Reverend Ira Combs. And I'm going to give you both because we call you both. And here we have Mike Swope. He's the adjunct professor at Schoolcraft Community College and Wayne Community College.
The Professor Mike Swope.
The professor. I thought since Thursday there was a lot of activity up in Lansing, we might talk about the little topic of right to work, as the legislation is known, but we call it labor freedom and labor choice.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was a big turnaround for our governor to go from, I'm not sure I'm going to support this, we have other things to do, then to come out Thursday and say, not only are we going to get this bill introduced, we're going to get it passed before the end of the year. And some are saying that it's payback for the union ballot initiative to enforce unionism and to put unionism in the Constitution. I think that might be true because the governor did go to the unions and say, let's keep this off the ballot, there's enough on it. He did go to the right to work people, and the right to work people said, okay, you're our governor, you ask us not to do this, we're not going to do this. So maybe it's some payback, but I think at the end of the day...
There's a bit of it there, but the movement for right to work in the legislature was around before Prop 2.
Oh, absolutely. Those who are saying this is being rushed and pushed...
Just because of Prop 2.
Yeah, that's not true. I mean, we've been talking about right to work for the last 2 years, ever since the Republicans took back the House.
And it's been advocated since the days of John Adler when Mackinac Center for Public Policy was advocating that bold initiatives should come out of the governor's office in ways that would be considered transformational.
Yeah, when Lawrence Reed was the president of the Mackinac Center, that was one of his key projects.
Exactly.
And I like the fact that it's finally being enacted or acted upon. Maybe not in the manner that some of the Democrats would like to see, which is years and years of committee work and
they wouldn't have wanted if the bill had come out the way they would have liked to have seen, they would have never seen it.
That's true.
And Dr. King often said about taking bills and putting them in committee and putting them on hold and setting them to the side and tabling them become bogged down with what he called the paralysis of analysis.
Right.
So when you're trying to always analyze something that has been analyzed sufficient, and we know the benefit of right to work is for people to have choice when it comes to joining unions, and in fact people should have a choice as to whether or not they will or will not join the union. If they want to join the real union, the right to work doesn't prohibit them from joining the union, to my knowledge.
Well, yeah, and if you know what you want to do, you know how you want to go about it, and you know it's the right thing, then do it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the other thing that our viewers need to know is that the law as written would not take away
Police and fire?
No, it wouldn't take away the right now to you. Well, let's say like the state employees, you couldn't get out of the union tomorrow after it's passed.
Right.
You're still in that contract until the contract is no longer enforced.
Right. Now, and what a lot of people don't understand, and as we tape, things could change because we are taping on the weekend between when the bills were introduced and passed in the legislature, and then the House are going to have to vote on final versions after we tape. So we're still kind of speculating a little bit because
there's some reconciliation. Yeah.
It's possible that the bills could be amended. I'm not saying that they will be, but there could be changes.
Here's the way it happened. The House passed the public or the private sector union, like United Auto Workers. The Senate passed a bill very similar for the public, the state workers, and the local workers and all the the state workers.
The Senate have passed a private
and a private
and public.
Now they've gone back to each other. My understanding is they're going to pass those bills as is. There'll be no reconciliation necessary, so that this next week, probably Thursday, it'll hit the governor's desk and he'll sign it.
Right. We still got to allow that there could be changes, but nonetheless, all of the versions protect collective bargaining.
Absolutely. It's a labor freedom. You have the freedom to join in a collective
Right.
And
organization. or not.
it can be safely argued from the Republican side and from conservative side that the bill contains some reasonable compromise in it for those individuals who believe in unionization.
Sure.
And in fact, those who negotiated the language of the bill have met those who in fact were opposed to it halfway.
Well, maybe what we need to do is, again, talk about what this is, as opposed, and why it's being done. Michigan right now is a union shop state. So in a place where you get hired to work for a company that has a collective bargaining agreement, you have to join that union. You're automatically made a member of that union, and the dues are automatically taken out by virtue of your employment. And you can leave that union. You're still going to have to pay agency fees, but you can leave that union. It takes a very long and very arcane process, a very tedious process. But by virtue of working at a union shop, you are automatically a member of the union. You automatically have the dues collected. You have to go through that long, tedious process to get out of the union. What these bills will do, these labor choice bills, what these bills do is they do not force you to become a member of a union in a union shop. You may join the union if you choose to. You may also stay out of the union if you choose to. And that's what is trying to be accomplished now. All of the versions of bills that have been passed that we are discussing, all three versions have provisions to protect collective bargaining.
Absolutely. But let's understand, too, there are some political considerations in this bill.
Oh, absolutely.
We understand that union workers are not all liberal.
Correct.
There's between 35 and 45%, depending on the union, depending on the area,
That vote Republican.
that vote Republican, and they're tired of their money being taken out of their pocket to support liberal ideas they don't support.
Absolutely, and this is going to be a big blow to the unions because right now, because Michigan is a union shop state, that money flows automatically, and the unions do not want to give that up, because what's going to happen with Michigan being a labor freedom state, those unions are actually going to have to work for those dollars and earn them.
They're really
Why
going to have to.
why would we view it as a big blow to the unions versus
It's the union bosses.
but
It's really
versus viewing it as a win for freedom of choice in labor and a win for the free market system and job creation.
Yes.
You and I are going to do that. You're going to do that. But what we're going to see during the legislative process over the next few days, we're going to see busloads of either union members or people paid to protest, like we normally see the SEIU do. They can't go out there and protest themselves because they got to work, so they hire people who aren't working for $10
Right.
an hour with
Well, that's
no
not our
benefits to do
concern when,
that.
in fact, the bill is going to be signed. The bill is going to pass the House.
It's
gonna
going to
pass the
happen.
Senate.
Yeah,
It's
but
gonna-
Tuesday's
so
going to
it's
be
gonna-
ugly.
it's gonna
You're going to
become-
see a repeat of Wisconsin, and you're going to see a
It's not on
tragedy.
that level, though. The crowds are not on that level.
Oh,
the support are
they're-
not on that level.
As we
not.
speak, busloads of union thugs are being brought into Michigan for that purpose.
Yeah, I would more so like to mitigate what the unions are doing, since this is already a hands-down win for labor with regard to persons who have labor choice. It is
Sure.
a win for corporate America with regard to creating jobs and job creation and
And
creating
this-
opportunities. It is a win for Michigan with regard to reducing our unemployment rate and increasing employment for those persons who are seeking employment, jobs, careers, and professions,
Well,
and
and,
futures.
and as Ray was saying, it's a win for union members who are tired of seeing
Thank you.
their millions of their dollars wasted in causes that not only they oppose politically, but in causes that actually undermine their own jobs.
So it is
Yeah.
win-win-win.
Yes.
It is win-win. So
Well, there's a
speak-
loss out there, again, like you said, the
Let's
union
speak to those
bosses.
wins, though. Let's speak to those wins. What are the comps in terms of comparables between our state and Indiana that already is a right to work state? How many jobs have they created that, in fact, we have not created that we will create once we become a right to work state?
Well,
Who can
it's
speak to
even
that?
more fundamental as how many jobs went from Michigan to Indiana
Yes.
over the last decade.
Yep.
And I think the numbers I've seen are anywhere from 75,000 to 125,000.
Somewhere in there. Yeah, it's in that range.
So are you saying that we would gain, again, 100,000 plus jobs as a result of right to work? And
I'm not going to tender a number on how many jobs we're going to gain.
Well, won't we gain?
But the first thing is that we're not going to be losing those jobs to Indiana or to other right to work states.
Well, wouldn't we gain favorability
We're
status?
in the long run.
In
the long
when
run.
it comes to corporate geographical
In the long run, but you've got
location?
other factors to go along with that,
Okay.
including worker preparedness, and those
Well,
are things.
The first thing that's going to happen, nobody's going to jump into Michigan right away until this goes through the court challenges.
Right.
Because the United Auto Workers, the SEIU
they're-
will join forces.
Sure.
Their lawyers are already working
MEA,
on
AFT,
yeah.
they've already got.
Teachers are already sending letters home to the kids going, if this passes, your kid's going to get hurt. And remember, it's all for the kids.
Well, let's talk
Right.
about the exemption.
Sarcasm included.
We're really not interested in what they're doing in terms of trying to undermine
But it
something
will
that is
matter.
getting ready to become law regardless of what they do. But isn't it likewise probably a positive perspective to actually talk about the fairness issue with respect to wages? They're trying to say this means that this is going to kill the opportunity for wage increases and for persons to make
Not at
money.
all.
Where do they come up with this? And the audience needs to know that this is not true.
No, it's
to
not,
that,
because
please.
the wages have to be competitive. When a business pays uncompetitive wages, it's not going to
They lose their
attract-
workers.
Yeah, it's going to, because those workers will go to where they're going to get paid better. So so the wages are still going to be set by the market. And what it may do is that it may. It's going to slow down some wages, but those wages are inflated to begin with and needed to come down.
And you run a small business, so you have some knowledge of these kind of things. Certainly, I run a small business. Ray has run a municipality
Right.
with the Blackman Township supervisor. He ran the Blackman Township Public Safety Department. He ran.
And he's in small business now.
Small business now, and he's run an entire township.
He's at Exit
And-
Realty
and-
first. I don't know where he is second, but
well,
he's
he
at
also
Exit Realty
oversaw
first.
$100 million worth of community development throughout the township of Blackman, and
Right.
put together the jail deal for the development of the jail here in Jackson County,
Mm-hmm.
according to Dan Hines. So that said, we need you all to continue to lean on, for our audience, the details of the benefits and the pros of the bill that we're looking at that's coming across the table, because the McElwain Center for Public Policy is swearing hands down that in fact this particular legislation is going to lend itself to job creation, to job growth, to corporations moving to the state of Michigan, because we are with respect to our geographical location in the center of the country, and we're interfacing with the largest North American trading partner, Canada.
Yep.
Some $40 billion in trade coming across the Detroit River, if you will, and up in Port Huron. So with that said, a new bridge going in that's going to be picked up.
Double the commerce.
Right.
Double the commerce. So the commerce is going to be double. Speak to these states. Let's not lean on the union. I mean, I'm not having nothing against you union guys. I'm all for it. My mother was a union person. My father was probably considered more of
Well, remember, we do
executive
have,
branch
we've got a
for
union
a
member
motor company.
sitting at the table.
Yes, yeah, you're a union member. You are a union
Right.
member. So you can speak to these
Well,
states
there-
with a great deal of candor.
Well, there is one thing that I do want to say that is an issue of fairness for the unions that I think does need to be addressed.
Okay.
And that is that the unions do have a legitimate complaint that they have a duty under federal law to represent all workers at a place, regardless of whether those workers are unionized or not. And their argument is, well, we need to keep union shop status, so those workers are put into the union automatically, and they and therefore
we
we're
can get
getting
their
their
dues,
dues, and we are paid to represent them. Really, I think if you want to be fair, and of course the unions will never present this, but this is really what ought to happen, is that federal law should be amended so that the unions do not have the duty to represent workers who are not in the union, and therefore the unions do not have that burden.
No, I
so
would
I
agree
think
with
Can
that's
that be handled on the federal level?
It has to be.
it's got to be
That's the National
handled.
Labor
It's got to be
Relations?
handled at the federal level.
NLRB has to handle that?
No, it's got to be handled with a federal law.
NLRB is federal. The National Labor Relations is
Yeah,
federal.
but it's a regulatory agency, and it's subject to this law.
Well, I would say that with our current
the way the system is
change
supposed to
things.
work, yes. But yeah, I think, as a matter of elemental fairness, that law needs to be changed. Relieve the unions of the duty to represent all workers, whether they're there or not, and then that way you don't have the problem.
Positive things.
Okay.
And this cuts both ways. With labor freedom, and we might be able to maybe get rid of a bad teacher more easily
Yes.
down the road. That, I think, will be a good thing, because you can go into any school district, whether it's college or university or local school district, and if the teachers were having a one-on-one honest conversation, they would tell you who the bad teachers are.
Right.
They know who they are, and they want them gone too.
Yeah, part of that's based on teaching philosophy, but
Yeah.
there are teachers that, philosophy aside, there are teachers that are just plumb ineffective.
Yeah.
They should not be in a classroom,
They shouldn't be teaching kids to tie shoelaces,
and they can't.
and they can't
So
even do that.
performance-based with regard to
Performance-based. I think that's a positive. Another positive is that as it works through the system, it will attract more businesses. You can talk to the Japanese and the German automakers. Why haven't you located in Michigan? Duh, you're a union state.
Right.
You're harder. There's more regulations. Of course, that's the function of our state policy too. It takes longer to open up a plant here. Maybe what we're going to see is a revolution of sorts,
Well,
making it easier for these people to relocate here or locate new factories
Let's
here.
also be honest, and as the educator here on the show, maybe I should address this. We have a workforce that is undereducated. It's underprepared, and that's another reason why companies don't want to come here, is because they don't want to have to. If they are at a shop that gets organized, then they are at a shop that might be organized with a lot of workers that are incompetent and may not be trainable.
Right.
Where in a right to work state, they're not going to be stuck with those
Not
workers.
gonna be burdened.
So the plus is that perhaps now we're going to get more workers get serious about their education. And Michigan, it's something that has to be done with culture. And maybe this changes the worker culture. So instead of having a lot of people who say, well, my dad worked in a shop and my granddad worked in a shop, and I really don't need to pay attention because I don't need the education. I'll just work in a shop
I'm
too.
just going
Yeah.
to
I'll just
run a wrench.
stand in a machine, and I only need to do one thing for the next 30 years. Maybe now that culture is going to be changed even more, although it should have been changed already, but maybe now that culture gets changed even more, and we have young people get serious about their education and get into that competitive market, so that companies are going to say, Michigan, that's the place to go, because there's a trained workforce there, there's people that want to work, there's people that can work, and these are the people that are going to help us. These people are going to prosper, and we're going to prosper
Doesn't
with
that lend
them.
itself right to also competition? I mean, if you're going to be competitive nationally and globally, you're going to have to be able to have that kind of flexibility.
Sure.
And you're going to have that kind of dexterity, so that you can stretch, and that you can bend, and that you can move in directions that are necessary to bring in the best and the brightest
Right.
into your organization, so that you can compete on a level with the rest of those who are out there, not only on the national footprint, but also on the global footprint. How say you?
Well, we have to, education is key. We have to be competitive educationally, so that our workforce, our kids growing up, and let's face it, if we don't understand this, that schools are there to prepare kids for the workforce, for the
Right.
jobs there, then we're
They're
fooling
not.
ourselves.
They're not supposed to be there for indoctrination.
No, well, yeah, that's
Which
another
is
show.
unfortunate.
That's
Secular
another show.
Progressive have hijacked many of our academic institutions of higher learning and education, and made these institutions of indoctrination. How say you? Would you?
Oh, absolutely. Because I teach for 2 colleges, and I cannot teach college students their history classes or political science classes when a lot of these students aren't even performing at junior high levels in reading or mathematics or geography.
So there's a great degree, you're dealing with barriers of illiteracy.
Functional literacy.
Yeah, it's like
Functional
your schools,
illiteracy.
Well, explain that. Let me explain that, though.
Okay.
Well, what is functional
It's
literacy?
people who can barely they can read or write enough to get into a job, but not to execute it properly. So maybe they can write their name, they might be able to read parts of a basic document, but they cannot read at an adult reading level and comprehend what's on the paper.
Well, then that's a reading comprehension deficiency.
Well,
And if you can't comprehend, you
but
can't understand.
there's reading
You can't
comprehension,
understand, you can't do the
mathematics,
job.
exactly.
But they can be taught.
Yeah, but the problem is
That we're
that
hiring
they're
to
not.
teach? I thought they were already taught when we hired them.
Well, they're not learning. They're not learning in the K-12 level, and part of that's a deficiency of the schools because again we have teachers who aren't teaching what they're supposed to be teaching, but also that's a deficiency in the culture which cannot be fixed by government. It's a deficiency of people not raising their children, and
Yes, and I do agree with you.
and there is no government policy that can fix that.
And trying to
But-
lend some support to the MEA, the Michigan Education Association. I mean, I have never said the teachers should be social workers and they should be parents and they should be counselors and psychologists and psychiatrists,
Right.
nurses and other kind of clinicians to get the job done. I think that this expectation is very unrealistic. That in fact, kids coming from dysfunctional backgrounds and families and being released into schools that don't have the basic fundamentals to sit still and be instructed.
But
and
they're getting social promotion. They're being promoted, passed along
Being
and promoted
passed along.
out of the system, and they become a problem for the next level. So
Well,
K-12.
certainly they become a problem for corporate America because corporate America can't
Corporate America
hire
can't
these people.
hire,
If they hire them,
yeah.
they have to fire them.
Yeah, either that or they have to put a lot of money into retraining.
training, yeah.
And I think that I think what you see in right to work states is I do think that you especially states that have become right to work in the last couple decades, is that they do get much more serious about their education because part of that is that jobs are going there and those people have to have the folks that live there have to have that education to
So,
get
and
by.
positive
and-
nature of that for our audience. Speak to
Well,
that.
absolutely. And
Is
what
it
I,
true?
what I was going to talk about was that our educational system right now is a 20th century based education.
And we're in the 21st
19th
And we're in the
Actually.
21st, and
Right.
we're always behind. We need to be looking forwards. So those new jobs, those new technologies, those emerging markets that happen, that our kids and our grandkids now, as they're getting old enough to think about that, are prepared for these jobs. It was interesting a few weeks ago where all the Black Friday after Thanksgiving, you had Walmart workers, we're going to strike for higher wages and this and that. And you had
No, I don't think
McDonald's
that was
workers
Walmart
in
workers.
Chicago
I
going.
think that was union people that were opposing.
Well, there was some Walmart workers there. They got caught
The
up in them.
Walmart workers did get caught up, according to the
And
report.
and the McDonald's workers who in Chicago went on strike for 20 minutes going, we deserve $15 an hour. And somebody finally said to them, how many people are going to come in and buy those $12 Big Macs?
Right.
And then
Yep.
how many of you guys do we
Unless you
need?
make 2 pounds,
Right.
So
Yeah.
2 pounds of beef, like the big.
Yes,
burger.
that's the
So-
big Kahuna burger at Steaks.
So if you want to make $15 an hour or more, maybe you need to be able to do more than say, do you want fries with that?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. You got, and that's what our education right now is geared toward. You can fill out an application. Mm-hmm. You can.
Well, let's talk about now the post right to work bill signing. Please, let's talk now about the signing of the bill takes place and when does the bill take effect?
If everything goes according to Hoyle, the final versions of the bill go through the legislature 2 days after we tape. Then the bills have to be engrossed, which means that they have to be put in the pretty official form, and they would hit the governor's desk as soon as they're engrossed, which could be as early as Wednesday night.
Within the
Yeah,
next 2
more,
weeks,
more likely
within the
Thursday.
next 2 weeks, we'll see a bill signed by the governor And then what happens?
No, this week. It'll be this
It'll be
week.
this week.
And then what happens?
Then it'll be 90 days after the final end of the session. So whenever the legislature has what's called sine die adjournment, which means that they adjourn with no intention to come back, which from what I hear will probably be next Thursday. So it'd be sometime I believe it'd be April, end of March, sometime in April, the law would go into effect.
I haven't read the bill, but they can pass that bill to take immediate effect.
They could not get immediate. They couldn't get immediate effect in the Senate.
Okay.
So if the House passes one of the Senate versions, then
So it's 90 days, and in that 90-day period, that's when the lawsuits will happen. They'll try to attack it before it takes effect.
Yeah, you're gonna see the unions go to the courts, and there may be an attempted referendum, although these are supposed to be referendum proof because they're also appropriations bills.
Yeah.
And you cannot have a referendum on an appropriation. So so there shouldn't be a petition drive, but you find the right judge and it might happen.
And you will find the right judge in Lansing, but we also have a majority on the Supreme Court who understand
And the
workers'
appeals court.
rights.
The appeals court,
Yeah.
is our constructionist for the most part, and
Yep.
the Supreme Court are constructionist. What that means, audience, is that they're individuals who are of jurisprudence to interpret law as opposed to try to legislate from the bench. They leave legislation and lawmaking to lawmakers. They simply interpret what the law was intended to mean
But-
with respect to how it should have its proper application to the disposition
in the long
in
run,
contention. How's about that?
that
Well,
works.
I like that. And also remember, the Constitution and bills, legislation of this matter should always be about expanding freedom and liberty. And that's exactly what this does.
Right.
It gives me now the choice to have the freedom to join or not join a union.
But in our last couple minutes, we have to start winding up here.
Yes, sir.
But the one thing that's going to happen in the long run is that once a bill takes effect, and assuming that there's no long dragged out legal challenge or suspension of the bill, whatever, is that eventually the unions are going to have to start collecting dues instead of having the dues handed over to them. Automatically, the dues are going to have to be paid by the individual workers.
I like that.
Yeah, and
Having the right
So
to check.
would you argue that therein lieth a greater degree of accountability?
yeah, because you're going to see a lot of workers resign from. It's going to be easier to resign from the union, and a lot of the workers that don't like the political goals and political activities of the unions are going to start resigning, and the unions are going to have to be a lot more accountable. So
They might have to do proportional allocations in their political donations.
absolutely, yeah.
And,
So there's
and that might keep some people in the union.
Yeah,
Hey, if I know
and-
my dollars are going to go where they need to go, then maybe
right.
I'll stay.
Yeah, and that's my plan because I'm a member. I'm an MEA member and an AFT member as well. I intend to keep paying. My locals have done a good job for me, but if the unions keep wasting a lot of money on these wasteful political activities, they're actually undermining my job or against things that I don't like. Well, maybe I don't write as much money, or I just or I be like a lot of other people and I resign.
Hence, one would argue that this particular bill rises to
1
the
minute.
threshold of greater efficiencies with regard to persons who are union members participating and unions' performance in representing the same.
Unions might actually confine themselves to their jobs, which is for collective bargaining representation of the workers, instead of trying to establish social justice and trying to be at least minority stakeholders in the Democratic Party.
Move for the adoption.
I would second that.
Yes,
Yes.
of course, the meeting.
30 seconds.
You're close.
Okay, we're going to wrap up. There's a lot going on with Right to Work. Make sure you talk to your legislator if you've got issues or questions or comments or encouragement. They need some encouragement out there because they are going to be hammered. This is Ray Snell with American Conservative Values Network. Thanks for tuning in.